So, Mark here from Rock and Load. This afternoon, we are joined by the one and only Mr. Chris Tapp. Chris is vocalist and guitarist for Indiana trio The Cold Stairs, and the guys have a new album coming out this March, Voices, courtesy of Mascot Records. Chris, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me.
Absolute pleasure, absolute pleasure. So, where are you today?
I'm in Evansville, Indiana. It's about 3 hours north of Nashville, Tennessee.
Yeah, keep me right. I was trying to figure this out. So Evansville, is that a city within, is it Indiana a county?
Indiana is a state, yep.
It's a state, okay.
And Evansville is the bottom of the state.
And what's Kentucky then?
Kentucky is 5 miles from me, just 10 kilometers or so.
Another state, is it? Or is that a...
Yes, it's another state.
Okay. Because when people say Indiana, I automatically always think Indianapolis, and I always get the two mixed up.
Yeah, Indianapolis is a city in Indiana.
Yeah. Okay, very good, very good. So, are you born and bred in that part of the world?
I grew up in Kentucky, just 30 minutes south of here. I married a lady from Evansville, as did Brian, and we both came from Kentucky and moved up to Indiana.
Yeah, and what do you think the area and the lifestyle itself sort of shaped your musical taste?
Maybe somewhat. Where I grew up was also the home of the Everly Brothers, and also the home of, within an hour or so, Chris Knight and Dwight Yoakam. There's a lot of more country people from that area, but just a lot of singer-songwriter stuff in general. So it probably did help, at least the root side of our music is probably derived from at least growing up in the area.
Yeah, and so the band, I believe, was formed back in 2012. How did you two come together?
We were in a band prior to this one, and had done rather well. We had some showcases for some record labels right at the end of that band, and we didn't get signed, and so we both just kind of took a break. We had a mutual friend that was doing some shows and asked us both to sit in to help him out. We did that, and then we ended up kind of sprouting the band off of that.
Yeah. And what's that experience like? You say coming within touch and distance of being signed. Is it a gut-wrenching experience, or is it something that sort of fortifies you and makes you want to drive further?
It was both. At the time, it was heartbreaking because we were so close and we were trying really hard. But the problem is that I think I was writing to try to get a record deal instead of just writing what was really natural to me at the time. We were really trying to just fit a profile that we thought the record label wanted. And so, it didn't happen. On the backside of that, we both said we were retiring and we weren't going to play anymore in this band. Even the beginning, the reason we were a two-piece in the start was because neither one of us wanted to say we were in an actual band. We just wanted to say, well, if we don't have a bass player, we're not a band. We're just doing a couple shows. But because it was so natural and we didn't have any expectations, the songs were just so much better. They felt really honest, and they felt more unique, and they felt very true to kind of who I am as a songwriter. And it clicked, and then we were stuck as a two-piece because it did so well,
Yeah, it must be quite a unique experience, an unusual experience writing as a two-piece compared to obviously the traditional band setup. So, like, how did it come about? How was the songwriting process?
Well, I was never a fan of like the Black Keys, the White Stripes. I was never a fan of not having the bass in the band. Like I love their songs and appreciated their songs, but I don't want to go to a concert and listen to guitar and drums without a bass. So early on, I figured out a way to play the bass with the guitar, and it made me write, especially for the first record, in a way that I could play it live. So there's not a lot of solos. And there was more sections where Brian and I would kind of play a solo section together. So it made me write a little bit different early on. But after the first record, I was like, well, everybody likes us live, so we know we can play well live. I'm just going to make the best record we can and stopped worrying about how we would pull it off live so much. And then we just kind of modified the songs live, which was kind of cool because we'd play it one way on the record and fans would see us live, and it would be a little bit different. And they liked it too. But after 4 records, or whatever it was, right before we did this one with Bryce, I just was at the point where I was really loving playing guitar and soloing, and we were at a place where I just didn't want to do it as a 2-piece anymore. We never played with tracks. I didn't want to bring a Pro Tools rig or play with tracks and stuff. So I was like, well, it's time for us to get a bass player and mix it up.
And out of curiosity, did you play like the baritone guitars, or did you play sort of alternative tunings then to compensate for the sort of lower register?
No, I had a pretty unique rig, and I had a couple guys. My brother worked in the computer tech industry, and he was pretty smart and helped me a little bit early on. But I had a rig that would, I could play a regular guitar, and the signal would split into 3 signals. I had a pedal board that was made by a guy named Delisle in Indiana, and so the main signal would be 440. The second signal would be 1 octave down. The third signal would be 2 octaves down, and then run through a bass simulator before it would hit a bass amp. So I was using 3 amps live, 1 standard, 1 octave down, 1 2 octaves down, and the 2 octaves down was a full-on bass amp. So I would explain it to the sound guy that consider us as AC/DC Highway to Hell. The verses don't have a bass, and then the chorus hits, and I add the bass. So basically that second amp would come in on bridges to thicken it up, and then the bass amp would come in on choruses.
Yeah,
it's pretty unique. But it was, dude, it was so much shit to pack around for the 2 of us. I'm packing around 3 big amps, a big pedal board, and it was great. And actually, we would always, especially if somebody had heard us before, their expectations of 2 people walking on stage, we would always blow that out of the water, because it was so massive sounding. But after a while, it was like, all this gear, it's much easier now bringing 1 amp and having a bass player than it was doing that.
Yeah, I'm sure. I can only imagine. And have you compensated at all then with various pedals or anything now? Do like drop pedals or harmonizers or octavers or anything to get the same effect?
Yeah, I use a TC Electric 7-Up a lot of times for that octave sound if I'm going for something off the early records. And then I have a fuzz pedal that has an octave in it too, that if I need to do that. But to be honest, Bryce, our bass player, covers most of those parts that I had to make it work from the earlier stuff.
Yeah, so he learned the back catalog and sort of brought his own sort of little magic to it.
Man, he was great. The very first time, and we had known Bryce for about 10 years and always respected him. But the first time that we got together, after I asked him was he interested in playing, he came into rehearsal and he knew the entire catalog, songs that we hadn't played in a long time that we didn't know. So that definitely helped him get the gig.
Yeah. And so for the new album, then obviously you talked about this sort of desire to move on beyond the 2-piece. Were you starting to write more elaborate songs then that really required the need for a bass player?
Yeah, I decided at the beginning of Voices, when we started to write that, I needed some inspiration, and I wanted to write as a 3-piece. So I specifically wrote all these songs, so that we could play them as a 3-piece. And I was just kind of burnt out on trying to do Heavy Shoes. The album before this one was great, but it's a motif that kind of runs through the entire album, with the exception of In the Nighttime and Dust in My Hands. It's a pretty heavy record all the way through, and we just wanted to, a lot of venues now we're playing an hour and a half or 2 hours, and to beat somebody over the head for that long with heavy stuff, it's nice to be able to have some places in the set that we can kind of lay back and groove a little bit with the bass player and just mix it up. So I wanted the record to reflect that and have some different changes.
Yeah, and I believe the new album then was recorded just over the 48-hour period.
Yeah, we usually do that. We go into the studio pretty well rehearsed. So we just played. We went in. Shannon Forrest, the drummer for Toto, and he's played on a million great albums. He has a great studio in Nashville that our producer, or our friend Mark Needham, works over there a lot. And we told Mark we wanted to do the record with him and have him engineer it. And he said, well, we should do it at Shannon's. It's a great drum room. So we just set up in there and we played the album live outside. the acoustic stuff and the keyboard stuff I did at my house. But outside of that, we just set up and played live in there.
Yeah, it's crazy because I remember talking to Glenn Hughes a good few years ago now when he last recorded the Black Country Communion album with Joe Bonamassa, and I think they'd done it over like a 5 or 7 day period. And I thought that was impressive, but 48 hours, you've trumped some of the best in the business.
Well, I don't know about that. Like I said, I think a lot of bands, our friends, Rival Sons, a lot of times go in the studio and they haven't even written anything. So, we had the songs written out, and I think there's 12 songs on the record. So we had 2 acoustic and a keyboard song. So we played 9 songs. Actually, we had all the songs done the first day. With the second day, we just kind of looked at what we had done, and I might have done some guitar overdubs and a little bit of vocals, but it doesn't take us that long. We're not Queen and doing, things that are very intricate. We're just kind of a straightforward band. So
yeah, you like that sort of live recording ethereal feel to your albums.
Yeah, I never get enough of it. I never feel like it captures what's in the room. I think the next record we're even going to go even further than that. So I like that because the bands, the first Zeppelin record, a lot of the stuff that I really like, it all sounds like you're standing in a room with the band. So
yeah. And I'm assuming then from what you're saying, you enjoy the studio process. Some people sort of find it a bit sort of jarring.
I adore it. Yeah, I would do that. It's been amazing touring the world, especially, and getting to see, other places. And I love touring, but my heart is in songwriting and recording. I would do it. I write for TV and film and stuff by myself as well. I have a studio at home, so I'm in the studio almost every day.
Yeah. So very, very comfortable in that environment. And so, out of curiosity, what type of gear did you use on the album then to get some of the sounds you created?
Yeah, I used a '65 Stratocaster that I had bought not too long before we did the record, and I used that on a lot of the stuff. I have a Fender Custom Shop Meteora that they built for me. I got an endorsement in 2019 with Fender, and they built me a couple special guitars. So I used those Meteoras, and then I used a 57 Les Paul special. It's a yellow TV yellow one that I had. And amp wise, it's a Fender Super and a Black Volt amp, which is kind of similar to like a JTM 45 type thing. And I ran those stereo, and then we just kind of pick what we wanted back and forth.
And
A lot of the fuzz.
Sorry,
yeah.
Your live set, do you try and recreate the same thing live then?
Yeah, I'm using a Amplified Nation amp now, which is a Dumble copy. It's called the Bombshell Overdrive. And live, I'll use like a small amp for some of the resonator stuff that we do, and sometimes I'll run it in stereo with the Amplified Nation. But I'm just using that one amp as the main tone live, and it covers the same thing we did in the studio. Some stuff in the studio I did with the fuzz is that R2R. Electronics fuzz, which is kind of like a I don't know how to describe it. It's kind of like a zonk machine, I guess. It's a cool fuzz. But yeah, that's so when you hear the fuzz stuff on the record, that's that.
And
fuzz.
Are you still a gearhead after all these years playing guitar? You still pick up bits and pieces here and there and pedals? And...
I try not to be, but I am. I'm not a gearhead on amplifiers at all. I hate amps in general. I want something that works and doesn't break down, and I see it more as a tool. So if I find an amp that I'm digging, I've been playing Fender Supers for years, and I love those. And I like the Black Volt that I did the record with, but I really love this Amplified Nation. It's the first amp that it really dials in easily to what I'm looking for, but it has all the dynamics, super touch sensitive, which I really have to have. And I'm not a super pedal guy. I want things that'll help me create something that sounds different than everybody else. I don't geek out over. It doesn't matter to me if the pedal's $60 or $600. It's just what it does,
Yeah.
But guitars is a different thing. I'm a guitar addict, and I have been since I was 13, and so a lot of the money that I've been able to make over the years has all gone into guitars.
Yeah,
so,
I know it's addictive.
It is. It absolutely is.
Yeah. And out of curiosity, then, with the guitars that you do play, are they standard pickups that come with them, or have you endorsed by anybody at all, or do you use anything special?
I've been playing on some of the rootsy stuff. I've been using a Mule resonator and Mule Mavis, which is their electric resonator for that stuff. On the electric stuff, I play my Fenders the majority of the time. I also play a Banker Flying V, which is like a Lonnie Mac type Flying V. And I've been using that a heck of a lot too. So I just kind of mix it up, man. But usually I'm not too crazy about swapping out pickups. It either does what it does on the Strats. Sometimes I'll do that. But in general, I'm friends with Joe Bonamassa as well, and he always is kind of proactively saying, if it sounds good, if it doesn't sound good, get a different guitar. I think you can chase down those holes. It's kind of like that DGT. Those pickups in the DGT, I adore, and it's like, I don't know, let that guitar be that. I have a 64 ES335. It does something different. I don't want to change it up too much and let them do their own thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's as you say yourself, it is a rabbit hole that you can easily fall down, and there's so many variables in between the guitar, the pickups, the amplifier using, the pedals, the cables, everything, so it's, and the player itself, I suppose, as well.
Yeah. I love to swap guitars and move around gear if it inspires me. And I get a new guitar in, and it just like the Mule, it had a very different sound than the other guitars. If it's something that causes me to write differently or write some new stuff, then it's definitely worth the purchase. So.
Out of curiosity, I was watching an interview the other day with a guitar player out of Mastodon, and he was talking about when he always tracks with different guitars and different amps. Do you do that yourself at all?
I use those same amps that I used for the entire record, but I also wanted the record to have a kind of uniform sound to it. I love the records, like Free and Zeppelin, where most of the record sounds like the guitarist with his guitar and his amp. I'm not somebody that really likes, I guess I say that, but this record has a lot of different textures on it. It just depends, man. I think in general, I kind of want a fuzz sound, and I kind of want a rock sound, and then I want a kind of rootsy sound. So maybe 2 or 3 different vibes. But I always have a lot of admiration for somebody like Jeff Beck or Jimmy Page, some of these guys that used a guitar and an amp and stick with it.
Yeah. Very different times. I think it's probably one of the problems of the modern world is that we have so much choice now, and we're always messing with stuff, tweaking all the time.
I would totally agree. Yeah, I do think it's best sometimes to helps you focus if you just stick with one thing.
Absolutely. It's a challenge, I suppose, in this modern world for a lot of guitar players to try and even do that, because when I was in my teens, there was such a limited option to choose from, especially financially. You done that, but today it's like plugins and everything in the world's at your fingertips.
Absolutely. Kempers, and I mean, you can kind of get anywhere you want to get. To be honest, I told somebody the other day, I'm very fortunate to have some nice guitars, and I could take any of them and just do the whole record with one guitar, or do the tour. When we tour Europe, I take one guitar.
Yeah.
So it's a luxury to have. And I'm either trying to make money on guitars and selling guitars, which I've done for a long time too, and I'm fine with that, or I am trying to get some inspiration for songwriting out of the guitar. So
absolutely. And so what have you guys got lined up then? Obviously the album's just around the corner. It's going to be releasing very soon. Have you got a tour lined up?
Oh yeah. We're doing some concert release shows March 10th and 11th here in the States. And then we've got a couple runs in the States through the Midwest. In May, we leave for a tour in the EU, and I think we do 7, 8 countries on that run. It's about a month, and then we come back, and then we go back, I think France in early July for a couple dates. And then the UK, we're playing the Made of Stone Festival, which is the new version of Ramblin' Man Festival.
Okay.
Yeah, we're playing that on July 22nd. And then we come back to the States. We've got some runs in the States, kind of everywhere, Texas and up north. And then we head back to the UK in December for the Planet Rock thing. And I think we've got a couple weeks of tour around that as well. So busy year and just trying to work the record. And I think hopefully we're going to release some more stuff later on this year, either some live cuts, or maybe some new songs that'll lead into the next record.
Well, very good, very good. I'm looking forward to it. I really enjoyed the album. It's a great quality production, great quality recording. So yeah, all the best with it moving forward, obviously, and I hope you have a great success with it.
Thanks so much, man. Highly appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, look, great talking to you, Chris. Thanks again for your time. And just to remind everybody, the guy's albums drops March 10th, courtesy of Mascot Records, Voices. Keep your eyes out for it. Chris, thank you for your time again, sir.
Yeah, man. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. Talk to you soon. Hopefully see you in the UK sometime later in the year.
Hope so, Mark.
Take care. Thanks, man. See you later.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye.